They left years ago, but somehow, they still sleep beside you in the silence. You don't talk anymore, yet their voice still echoes in the quiet spaces of your mind, like a haunting refrain from a song you can't stop humming. No messages, no glances, no closure, just the invisible thread of something unfinished, something unsaid. And yet, it clings. You see their face in strangers. You search for them in others' eyes. You rehearse what you'd say if fate brought them back, as if your soul never received the memo. They're gone. The body accepts reality, but the psyche, it lingers. Why? Why do we keep holding on to someone who no longer exists in our life? Sometimes even someone who hurt us. Why does the heart keep whispering, maybe, long after the mind has screamed, no? Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What if this ache is not about love, but about something older, something deeper? What if it's not really about them, but about the shadow they awakened in you? We don't fall for people. We fall into them, like stepping into a hidden chamber of the self we never knew existed. And sometimes they walk away, but that part of us they unlocked, it stays open. This is not just heartbreak. This is shadow attachment. It's when the wound we buried long ago finally finds a face, a voice, a kiss. And in losing that person, we lose the illusion that we were never wounded to begin with. The pain feels personal, but it's ancestral. It's not about letting go of them, it's about releasing the part of you that thought they could heal the hole they didn't create. So now, I ask you, what if the real reason you can't let them go is because you were never holding onto them in the first place? What if you've been holding onto a memory, a mirror, a moment when your shadow whispered, "Here I am," and for once, you didn't turn away? What happens when we mistake that echo for love? What happens when trauma wears the mask of chemistry? And more importantly, what happens when we begin to see it clearly? Let's walk together into that dark corridor. Slowly, gently, not to find them again, but to finally meet the part of ourselves we gave to them. Are you ready to see what's been waiting in the dark? There's a place within you no map can find. Not your memories, not your dreams, but a submerged realm, older than reason, deeper than grief. You feel it when a certain scent drags you back to a childhood kitchen, when a stranger's voice makes you ache for someone you've never met, when you keep repeating the same heartbreak, different faces. Carl Jung called this realm the unconscious, and within it lives the shadow. Not shadow as in darkness, but shadow as in everything you pushed aside to survive. Imagine for a moment, you were once a child, wild, luminous, untamed. You sang when you wanted to sing. You cried when something hurt. You needed touch, attention, presence. But one day, someone looked at you and their eyes said, too much. Too loud, too needy, too sensitive, too emotional. And so, you buried it. Not just the behavior, but the entire self that carried it. You didn't stop crying because the pain stopped. You stopped because your pain made someone else uncomfortable. You didn't stop wanting love. You just learned to want it quietly. You didn't stop needing. You just taught your body to numb. This is how the shadow is born. Not from evil, but from innocence unreceived. And the tragedy? The shadow doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits in dreams, in projections, in the sudden rage you feel when someone ignores you, in the way you run from love or cling to what hurts. It waits for someone to awaken it. Then one day, you meet them, and without knowing why, your body remembers. It remembers what it was like to be seen, or maybe to be abandoned, or maybe both, and you call it chemistry. But what if it's not chemistry? What if it's recognition? Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. We mistake repetition for romance. We think we're drawn to someone because they're special. But often, they're familiar, because they activate the very parts of us we once had to reject. You don't fall in love with them. You fall into your shadow, through them. And so begins the projection. In Jungian psychology, projection is not just about blaming others. It's about unconsciously casting parts of ourselves, especially the disowned ones, onto others. We look at someone and see ourselves without realizing it. That's why it feels so intense. Why they feel like a missing piece. Because they're carrying your shadow for you. That's why when they leave, it hurts like you're being split apart. Because it's not just loss, it's the resurfacing of everything you once silenced. Every ache, every rejection, every echo of "you're too much" that you still carry in your bones. You weren't just attached to them. You were attached to the self you became in their presence. The you that felt allowed to feel again, to want, to hope, even if it was fleeting. But here's the paradox. The shadow can only be healed by being seen consciously. And projection, by nature, is unconscious. So when you love through projection, you are not loving them. You are loving your shadow reflected in their eyes. The danger: you can't ever really reach them. You're not loving the person in front of you. You're loving the unfinished business inside you. This is why shadow bonds feel magical and maddening. They are full of longing, but never landing. Full of connection, but always chasing. Because the unconscious cannot be satisfied by another. It can only be integrated. Integration begins when you pause and ask, what do I see in them that I'm afraid to see in me? What do I need from them that I've denied myself? What feelings arise around them that I've labeled unsafe? And perhaps the most painful question of all, what part of myself have I only dared to meet? Through loving them. This is the gift of the shadow, not to torment you, but to return you. To call you back to the parts of you still waiting to be welcomed home. So the next time your heart aches for the one who left, ask not, why can't I let them go? Ask, what in me awakened the moment they arrived? It always starts the same way. A glance across the room. A message that lingers a second too long. A connection you can't explain, but feel in the body like déjà vu. You tell yourself it's nothing. But deep down, something has shifted. She was like that. Let's call her Alina. She laughed with her eyes. She moved like she wasn't afraid of being seen. And yet, something in her felt distant, like she was always about to leave, even as she leaned in closer. Jonas noticed this, but ignored it. He had fallen for her in the space between clarity and confusion, the kind of space where shadow lives. They talked every day. Then suddenly, she pulled away. No explanation, just silence. He reached out. She replied 3 days later. Warm, but vague. And then again, disappeared. Then reappeared, soft and sweet, like nothing happened. It was as if she was there and not there. Real, but not reachable. Jonas became obsessed. Not with her body, but with the puzzle of her. He couldn't understand why she drew him in just enough to ignite hope, and then vanished before it could take root. Carl Jung might have called this a projection spiral. Alina, you see, was not the woman Jonas thought she was. She was a symbol, an archetype. She carried in her presence the mystery he had denied in himself. She reminded him of a childhood wound he had never put words to. Jonas was raised in a house where love came in waves. Intense affection, followed by unpredictable withdrawal. His mother would sing to him at night, only to go cold for days without explanation. As a child, he learned, love is not safe, but if you perform well, maybe it returns. And so, in Alina's warm then cold pattern, the shadow was triggered. He didn't see her. He saw his mother's emotional rhythm repeated. He called it chemistry. But what it really was the familiar pain of waiting to be chosen. This is what happens when men, especially those taught to suppress emotion, fall into shadow attachment. They don't chase women, they chase unresolved childhood patterns. They don't want her, they want a chance to finally be enough. And women, they carry their shadows too. But often, it shows up differently. Take Mira, fierce, independent, raised to never need anyone. She learned early that vulnerability was dangerous, that tears were weapons turned against her. Then she met David. He was gentle, attentive, open-hearted. At first, it terrified her. She mistook his presence for weakness. His consistency felt dull compared to the emotional roller coasters she was used to, so she created distance. She pulled away. Then, she missed him. Reached out, grew close again, then retreated. She didn't mean to hurt him. She was reenacting the dance her father taught her long ago, that love means tiptoeing, guessing, staying sharp. She felt safest in emotional ambiguity. And David, too available, too sincere, didn't match the template of chaos she mistook for connection. So she unconsciously destabilized him. This is the emotional instability of the shadow. You don't push people away because you don't care. You push them away because their closeness touches a wound you're not ready to heal. Men and women play this game differently, but both are rooted in the same soil: fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of engulfment. Fear of truly being seen, and then rejected. Jung teaches that every behavior we can't explain is a signal from the unconscious. The vagueness, the hot and cold patterns, the sudden disappearances, they're not always manipulation. Sometimes, they're defense mechanisms in disguise. Defense against what? Against the unbearable tenderness of being loved without conditions. And so, we sabotage it. We ghost before we're ghosted. We withhold what we most long to give. We fall for those who can't stay, because they confirm what we secretly believe, that we are not worth staying for. These dynamics are not conscious. No one wakes up and decides, I will hurt someone today. But the psyche remembers. The inner child remembers. And unless we bring these memories to light, we keep recreating them over and over in the theater of love. So what can be done? It starts with awareness. When he doesn't reply for days, ask yourself, am I hurt by him? Or by the meaning I attach to his silence? When she gets close and then disappears, ask, is she toying with me? Or is she afraid that intimacy will expose her deepest fear? And if you find yourself stuck in a loop with the same kind of partner over and over, pause. Ask not, why do I attract them? Ask, what in me keeps choosing this? Jonas eventually learned. Not through Alina, but through the wreckage she left behind. He entered therapy. He began writing. He stopped chasing women who couldn't stay and started sitting with the part of him that once waited by the door for his mother to return. Mira, too, began to change. Slowly. When David left, kindly, but firmly, she didn't reach out. She sat in her silence. She cried for the first time in years. Not because of him, but because his absence forced her to feel the vulnerability she had locked away. In the end, shadow attachment is not about them. It's about what they reveal. The ghosting, the vagueness, the intensity. They are all messengers. The question is, will you chase the messenger? Or listen to the message? There's a silence that isn't quiet. It echoes in the spaces between glances, in the pause before a reply, in the shift of energy when love becomes too real. When someone loves you through their shadow, you don't feel chosen. You feel haunted. It's not that they don't care. They do. But what they're loving is not you. They're loving something in you. Something familiar. Something missing. Something they once buried inside themselves. This is not love. It is projection wearing perfume. Carl Jung wrote, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But what if the reaction isn't about transformation? What if it's a collision between unhealed wounds, searching for each other in the dark? Let's talk about Daniel. He loved women who were unavailable, married, distant, emotionally shut. The kind of women who made him work to feel visible. Then he met Celine. She was different, present, open, grounded, and that terrified him. Instead of moving closer, he began to withdraw. He flirted with other women. He grew cold. He criticized the way she cared too much. Celine didn't understand. She thought they were building something real. But Daniel wasn't running from her. He was running from what her presence awakened in him. The abandoned child who once waited at the window for a mother who never came back. Celine's love brought that child to the surface. And Daniel, still ashamed of that softness, turned away. This is the cruelty of shadow love. It feels like devotion, but it's often defense. When someone sees your tenderness, your hunger, your truth, and they cannot meet it without flinching, they are not rejecting you. They are rejecting the part of themselves that never learned to hold it. And when you try to love someone through your shadow, you don't love them. You love what they allow you to feel. You love the identity you've built around their gaze. It's like falling in love with a mirror. You forget there's glass between you. Take Anna. She always fell for tortured men. Men who drank too much. Men with heavy eyes and broken stories. She believed her love could save them. But what she really loved was being needed. Her father had once told her she was his angel. And so, love became labor. Love became sacrifice. Love became finding the darkest room in a man's soul and lighting candles inside it. But none of them stayed, because she wasn't loving them. She was loving the role she thought made her worthy. This is shadow love. It's not just about who you choose. It's about why. Why do you feel more alive in pain than in peace? Why does your heart beat faster when they pull away? Why does safety feel boring and chaos feel like chemistry? It's because the unconscious is always trying to complete a story. And shadow bonds often repeat the chapters we never finished. Sometimes they're echoes of our parents. Sometimes they're reenactments of early heartbreaks. Sometimes they're archetypes we don't even know we carry. The anima in Jungian psychology, our inner feminine image, might cause a man to fall for a woman not as she is, but as he imagines her to be. The muse, the nurturer, the enchantress. And the animus, the inner masculine, might drive a woman to pursue men who reflect her own suppressed strength or shadowy power. But when we love through these unconscious forces, we don't love the person in front of us. We love what they represent. And representation is not reality. That's why it breaks. Why the illusion collapses. Because no one can carry the weight of your unloved self forever. Eventually, they show their human edges. They forget a birthday. They withdraw during conflict. They reveal that they are not the archetype you cast upon them. And that hurts. Not because they changed, but because the fantasy died. So many of us fall in love not with people, but with our shadow's dream of being whole. We want someone to see the part of us we refuse to meet alone, to hold the grief we haven't named, to validate the worth we never received, to tell us without saying it, you are not too much. But here's the paradox. The more we seek that through another, the more we become enslaved to their presence. Because they're not a partner, they're a mirror. And mirrors break. True love, conscious love, begins when you stop asking others to complete your reflection. When you stop chasing people who make you feel high and empty. When you sit with the ache and ask it, who are you? What do you want me to feel? What truth have I been too afraid to hold? And if you're brave enough to listen, you might discover you weren't meant to find home in someone else's gaze. You were meant to return to the part of yourself that you exiled in order to be loved. That's the ultimate heartbreak of shadow love. It's not losing them. It's losing the illusion that they were ever the answer. They were never here to fix you. They were here to show you what still needs tending. So I ask you, when you miss them now, is it them you miss? Or the version of you that only felt alive in their presence? There is a peculiar silence that follows being idolized. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of distortion. When someone looks at you not as a person, but as a symbol, a rescuer, a savior, an answer to pain they never dared to name. And in their eyes, you stop being you. You become the dream. Carl Jung warned of this danger. He called it inflation, when a person identifies with an archetype and unconsciously slips into becoming a god in someone else's story. Not out of ego, but out of shadow. Because when someone hasn't integrated their inner wounds, they don't fall in love with the actual you. They fall in love with what you represent in their inner world. And so, they don't love you as a human being. They love you as an idea, the risk. You become their projection screen, and they become your mirror. Both of you caught in a trance, mistaking reflection for reality. Take Ethan. He was soft-spoken, intuitive, deeply empathetic. His presence made people feel safe, especially women who had never known safety in a man's arms. He didn't try to be anything. He simply listened. But to her, that listening became everything. She called him her healer, her anchor, her mirror. She told him he made her feel whole. At first, it felt beautiful. But soon, he noticed something. She didn't see him. She saw a version of him she needed. One that didn't falter, didn't fear, didn't have needs of his own. And when he showed those parts, when he was anxious or withdrawn or needed time alone, she grew distant, cold, disappointed, not because he changed, but because the illusion cracked, and with it, her hope that he could save her from herself. This is what happens when we turn each other into symbols. We don't relate. We worship, and worship is not intimacy. It's distance dressed as devotion. It creates a pedestal, and no one can breathe up there. Jung's concept of the persona explains this too. The persona is the mask we wear to fit into society, to be liked, admired, accepted. But when someone falls for your mask instead of your essence, you begin to perform, to maintain the illusion, and slowly, you lose touch with your shadow, with your needs, with your pain. You become what they need, instead of who you are. This is the tragedy of becoming a symbol. You're loved for how you make them feel, not for who you are. And worse, you begin to believe that love is conditional, that you must always inspire, always be strong, always reflect their worth back to them. But what happens when you crack? When you collapse, when you're no longer the mirror, but the mess? They pull away, because the fantasy cannot survive your humanness. And so, you're punished for not being the god they imagined, for not saving them, for revealing that you, too, bleed. Women know this well, especially the ones who carry light, the ones who nurture, inspire, awaken softness in broken men. They are cast as muses, as redemption. And when the man finally breaks open, he leaves her, because she was never the destination. She was the bridge, and bridges are not homes. This creates deep grief in both men and women. For the man, he realizes, she didn't love me. She loved the version of me that made her feel safe. For the woman, she mourns, he didn't choose me. He used me to awaken, and then discarded me. But the deeper truth, neither was truly seen. They were holding each other's projections. The risk of becoming someone's symbol is that when they awaken, they no longer need you. And the danger of making someone your symbol is that when they disappoint you, you feel betrayed, not by them, but by the dream you projected onto their face. This is why Jung emphasized the necessity of shadow work. Because when you know your wounds, you stop bleeding on others. When you hold your own darkness, you no longer need others to carry it for you. You stop asking your lover to be your therapist. Stop asking your partner to be your parent. Stop asking them to reflect your value, because you've already reclaimed it. And love, it becomes clearer, cleaner, not without mystery, but without delusion. The real danger is not heartbreak. It's believing the story you created in your mind was real, and punishing others for not playing their part. So I ask you, when you say they broke your heart, Did they? Or did they just refuse to become the version you imagined? Did they really leave you? Or did they finally show you who they've always been? And could it be that the love you lost was never truly yours, but a mirror you held to your own longing until the reflection disappeared? Somewhere, in a quiet apartment, someone lies awake, staring at the ceiling. There is no sound, only the weight of memory breathing beside them like a ghost. Not the person, not their voice, but the version of themselves that only ever existed in that love. The room is dim, a cup of tea half finished, a message unsent, the scent of something that no longer belongs here, but still lingers like the aftertaste of a dream. You don't miss them, do you? You miss the mirror. You miss how you felt reflected, desired, awakened, maybe even saved. But mirrors are never meant to stay. They catch light, then shatter. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And so, in the breaking, you begin to see clearly. It wasn't about them. It was about what they stirred, what they opened, what they allowed you to believe about yourself, for a fleeting moment in time. Now, it's quiet again, but different. You've tasted the illusion. You've walked through the projection. You've stared down the ache and asked it to name itself. And maybe that's enough for tonight. Maybe healing isn't a straight path. Maybe it's more like walking through fog with your hand stretched forward, not to find someone, but to feel the shape of your own soul again. You begin to see. You don't have to chase anymore. You don't have to beg anyone to stay. You don't have to shrink into someone's idea of who you should be. You were never too much. You were simply too honest for those not ready to meet their own reflection. So let them go. Let the illusion go. Let the ache breathe without needing to fix it. And if the silence returns tonight, don't run. Sit with it. Hold it like a child left out in the rain. Tell it, "I see you now, not because of them, but because of me, because I finally dared to look inward." And maybe, just maybe, that's what they came for. Not to stay, not to complete you, but to break the mirror, so you could stop living inside someone else's gaze. Now the sky is turning blue again. The birds will sing, like they always do. And life will move, not forward, not backward, but inward, because you are not who you were before this. You are softer now, and stronger. You carry the ache like a poem. You speak slower. You no longer try to be understood by those who cannot hear shadow. And when someone new comes along, you won't ask them to rescue you. You will ask, "Can you meet me in my depth?" Not to fix, not to fill, but to witness. And if they can't, you will let them pass, like a wave that no longer carries your name. Because you no longer fear the empty space. You've learned, it's not empty, it's you. So if you're still here, still breathing in this quiet, maybe you, too, are remembering something the world tried to make you forget. And if that's true, let me leave you with this. What if the love that shattered you was never meant to stay, but only meant to point you back to the one place you had always abandoned? Yourself. If you're still here, thank you. If this touched something in you, maybe you'll want to hear the next one. Maybe you'll come with me again, into the shadow. And if you do, you can subscribe. Not for me, but for you. For the voice inside you that finally whispered back, "I'm ready to see."